The White House has called for an investigation into the death of a Turkish-American woman who was shot in the occupied West Bank. Israel's military says it's investigating reports that its troops killed the woman after opening fire on demonstrators. Palestinian media say she was shot in the head during a march by activists in Beita, a town that has experienced repeated attacks by Israeli settlers. Our correspondent in Jerusalem, Emily Gordine, joins us now. Emily, tell us more about this woman and the demonstration that she was attending when she was shot at.
Yes, Brent. The activist in question has been identified as Ayşenur Ezgi Egi. She is a dual citizen of both the US and Turkey, and she was in the occupied West Bank with the so-called International Solidarity Movement to protest an Israeli settlement in the area. Now, this settlement in question was recently legalized by the Israeli government, even though all Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank are widely considered illegal under international law, and Israel has been widely criticized for allowing them to happen. So protests against Israeli settlements in the West Bank are not uncommon, but in fact, in recent months, some of them have turned violent. And that is what is said to have happened in this case as well. This case ended up in clashes with the Israel Defense Forces, which then led to shots being fired, which ultimately killed this activist. And Palestinian as well as Turkish officials now say that it was in fact Israeli bullets that killed her.
And Emily, what is Israel saying about the allegations that she was shot by the Israel Defense Forces?
So the IDF has not confirmed this. They have said that they were responding to, quote, violent activity, and they fired at an instigator who was throwing rocks at them and who posed a threat to them. Now, these claims are now, the incident in itself is now, quote, under review, and they're looking into these claims, which is also something that the US has asked for. But Palestinian as well as Turkish officials have responded and claim that this killing essentially reflects how Israel is intensifying its repression of Palestinian protests in the occupied West Bank. But if you look at the West Bank, the occupied West Bank as a whole, over the past few months, we've seen that violence between Palestinians and Israelis has intensified, has increased, not least because of the war in Gaza following Hamas's terror attacks on October 7th, but also in light of the rapid expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. And there are serious concerns that this violence could escalate even further.
DW's Emily Gordine in Jerusalem. Emily, thank you. Well, Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has warned Israel that what she called a purely military approach will not solve the crisis in Gaza. At a meeting in Tel Aviv, Baerbock told her counterpart, Israel Katz, that Israel needed to make a deal to end the war in Gaza and bring back hostages held by Hamas. She also urged the country to end its settlements in the occupied West Bank and to punish settlers who commit violence against Palestinians. Baerbock later met with Palestinian authorities leaders in the West Bank. All right, I want to get some analysis now with Natasha Hall. She's a senior fellow with the Middle East program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. It's good to have you with us. The German foreign minister, she has visited Israel practically every month since the Hamas October 7th terror attacks last year. Despite that, the war rages on. There is no ceasefire. So what have these visits achieved?
Well, that's a great question. And I will tell you that Americans are asking the same question about their diplomats right now. We've been seriously talking about a ceasefire since February. And yet, every time we see talks ratchet up, as we had in past weeks, that this is the last chance, nothing seems to catalyze. And I would say probably a big part of that for the United States and for Germany is the ongoing military support and diplomatic support for Israel moving forward.
Yeah, you mentioned Americans and the efforts by the U.S. Secretary of State. Does Germany have any influence on Israel any more than that of the United States?
I would say certainly not more than the United States, but Germany is one of Israel's biggest trading partners and also the source of many of its arms sales, actually, I think second to the United States. So it is a significant player here, and it has been a significant player in mediation in past flare-ups, either in Lebanon or in Gaza in the past 20 years. But because of the sort of unabashed support that we've seen from both Germany and the United States in the past 11 months since October 7th, we haven't seen a real significant shift in Israeli behavior or acquiescence to any kind of ceasefire negotiations. But I would definitely say that Germany would come, and any other country for that matter, would come far second or third to the United States in terms of being able to use its influence to move Israel in that direction.
And how about from the Palestinians' perspective? Is there anything that Germany can do beyond checkbook diplomacy to bring about a ceasefire in Gaza and to end the illegal settlements in the West Bank?
Yeah, I mean, you called it checkbook diplomacy. I would say it's just tangible measures. I think there's a lot of finger wagging that goes on, but at the end of the day, if the arms sales don't stop, then Israel has no actual motivation to change course. But I would say that Germany does play a role in setting the tone, which I think has already been happening in the past week. It's a significant change of tone for Germany compared to the past 11 months, where it has had very steadfast support for Israel regardless, and has really shied away from even calling for a ceasefire, really until very, very recently. But I think Germany does set the tone for the rest of Europe when it comes to Israel. And so it could potentially begin to show a shift there in the full-on support for Israel moving forward, and give Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, a bit of notice that time is running out.
Natasha Hall from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, we appreciate your time and your analysis tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.